Guys, today we're going to focus on learning about phrasal verbs where on and off are opposites. So, either side of it. I'm just getting ready. Sorry I'm late. Plug my power in for my computer. Oh, it's the wrong one. Alright. How's it going? How are you guys going? Send me a message. Tell me who's here. Get engaged. Oof. Got my notes. Who's here, guys? Send me a message. How's it going, Ron? Welcome to the live lesson. Where are you from, Ron? Say good day and introduce yourselves, guys. I'd love to know whereabouts you're from. I'll start in a few minutes. Hey, Dan, what's up? So today we're going to be talking about phrasal verbs. I know that you guys find these incredibly frustrating. Oh, in Melbourne as well, Ron. Awesome. Spanish guy. There's lots of Spaniards learning English. Maybe we'll just start the lesson. There's 6 or so of you here. So today I want to talk about the phrasal verbs that go with on and off, and you can use these where they're opposites. I might just try and give you a better angle. So I've got my user key here just from the museum. If I put this on my hand, put it on, it talks about that direction of movement going onto. When I take it off, it talks about the opposite thing. So these things, even though the verb is different, put and take, it's used with on and off to be opposites. So you put something on, you take something off. We could take my headphones, I can put these on my hands, I can take them off my hands. I can put them on the table, I can take them off the table. So you can put something on something, you can take something off of something. You can do this with clothing. If I put my jumper on myself, I'm putting it on, I'm placing it on myself, I am just, putting it on. If I remove my jumper though, I use the preposition off to talk about that movement away from myself. And I use a different verb to take. I have to use the verb to take because I'm taking the thing off. You can't use the verb put to move away from yourself, to do something that goes away from yourself. Put is always something that's sort of coming close, and that's why you have to use to put, where it's that movement like this, versus to take, where it's this movement. So I put something on, I take something off. So we can use to put on and to take off with things like clothing. It could be accessories. You can put some earrings on. You could put your watch on. If I take my lanyard off, I can also put my lanyard on. This is a lanyard. I won't move it too much because of my microphone. What else can we put on and put off? We can also do it with things like power. So for example, if I pick up my phone and I show you the switch down here, if I click it off, I'm turning it off, I'm putting it off, I'm switching it off, I'm flipping it off. If I flick it on though, I'm turning it on, I'm flicking it on, I am flipping it on, I'm switching it on. The verb is just describing the way that I'm doing it, whereas the preposition on or off is the thing in this case, at least with the switch, that's talking about power. So it could be with electricity. If you turn something on, you give that thing power. You're allowing the thing to be turned on, to be charged, to have electricity coming in. If you turn it off, where I turn the switch off, then I'm removing the power. The power's gone. And so you can use put as well to put something on, to switch something on, to flip something on, to kick something on if you were using your foot in order to turn the thing on. And we can obviously also use the verb to turn. Turn it on, turn it off. And we can just use turn for both of those things. So when it's a switch, it's the same movement, it's the same thing, it's just that the switch is going on if you lift it up, and it's going off if you lift it down. And so we can use the same verbs: switch on, switch off, turn on, turn off, flick on, flick off, flip on, flip off. The verb is just describing the action. So to flip is this, to flick is like that, to turn can be, I guess that's pretty much just, that's a difficult one. That's just the switch turning on and off itself, I guess. That's hard to sort of describe. Anyway, there's other ways that we can also use this. I've got my notes here. So what else can we use? You can throw something on and you can throw something off. So I could throw my clothes on. Again, that's on and off is describing the movement of my clothing. It's coming onto me, it's going away from me. And the verb is just describing the action. So if I was to say I'm just throwing the clothes on, that is kind of like, it's very abrupt. I'm literally grabbing the clothes and just throwing them on myself. If I came inside after a long day at work and I wanted to take my shoes off, if I kick them off, that would be like flicking my legs and the shoes are coming off my feet. I could also say that I threw them off. So as I'm changing those verbs, the verbs change because I'm just describing the action that's taking place in a different way. So I can use these different verbs. I can change the verbs around depending on how I want to describe the action. Throwing them off, kicking them off, taking them off, punching them off. I could say punching them off, although that's probably not that common a way to remove your shoes. And then you could say the same thing. You could say, I'm throwing them on, I am pulling them on. You know that movement to pull, I'm pulling it on. And so the verb is really, like we were talking about in yesterday's lesson with, I think it was in and out, the verb can be whatever you want it to be if it's just describing this action. If it has to make sense, obviously, for the action that's taking place. You know, you can't use verbs where you can't kick something on, really, at least if you're talking about putting clothes on. It's pretty hard to do an action that's kicking and then for you to end up having your pants on or something, or your shoes on. So it has to make sense. You can kick things off, but you'd have to use a verb like pull or place or put when you're talking about getting that thing on yourself. And then you've got to think about the verb that's describing the action of getting it off yourself. So the verb can change. You just want to think at the end of the day, though, is it coming on? Is it being put on? Is it being placed on? On is the movement. It's being placed on. Or is it being taken off? On and off describe the movement, and the verb is describing how that movement is taking place. Is it being kicked off? Is it being thrown off? Is it being pushed off? Is it being pulled on? Is it being placed on? Is it being put on? So there's all these different ways of describing that same thing. It's just, how is that action taking place? How do you want to describe that action of the way in which you're putting the jumper on? Are you doing it in a very haphazard manner, just throwing it on? Or are you doing it in a very delicate manner, placing it on, very delicately placing it on? So the verb changes the description of how it's happening. On and off tells you the direction that it's happening in. Is the thing going on or is it coming off? So that's on and off. And I've got some other notes here too. We can talk about it with transport. So we can get on something. We can get on a bus, we can get on a plane, we can get on a tram, we can also get on a boat, a ferry, we could get on, what else is there? Yeah, train, plane, bus, tram, boat, ferry, transport, public transport. You get on if you go inside, and you get off if you exit. So in this case, get on is to enter public transport, get off is to exit public transport. Get, the verb, can change. It can be whatever you want with regards to describing how you're getting on the train, getting on the plane. Say I'm in a rush and I'm running onto the plane, I'm running on the plane. I'm walking on the plane. I'm walking onto the plane. You can use to there as well. It's up to you. I'm jogging onto the plane. I am stepping onto the plane. Say I'm lifting my foot, literally putting my foot onto the plane as I get in the plane or get on the plane, then I'm stepping on the plane. As I'm exiting, I'm stepping off the plane. I'm walking off the plane. I am jumping off the plane. The verb can change. The preposition, though, has to stay the same with regards to the action that's taking place. Are you going off? Or are you getting on? Are you going on? Are you jumping on? Are you walking on? Or are you getting off? Are you jumping off? Are you running off? Leaping off? Doing a flip off? It can be whatever you want. It's how you want to describe it. So there's that. We can also talk about movement with regards to putting things on ourselves. So you could say, if you want, I'm putting the hat on to my head. So if you add the preposition in to, onto, or off of, that's talking a lot more about the specific movement of the object you're describing. So it's a difficult sort of concept to describe, but when you place those other prepositions after the on or the off, so get on something or get on to something, in my mind, just thinking about it, if I was to say I'm getting on something, I would imagine placing myself on it. Whereas if I say I'm getting on to something, in my mind the same action is taking place, but I'm actually thinking about the movement. So if you said get off that thing versus get off of that thing, it kind of just describes a little bit more the movement, but I would treat it, you could use either. You can really use either. It's really up to you. Is onto more formal than on? I don't think it matters. I honestly don't think it matters. And for you guys, I think that it's the kind of thing where it's not going to change what you're trying to say. You're not going to confuse anyone. If you say I'm getting on to the plane or I'm getting on the plane, everyone's going to understand exactly what you're trying to say. If you say I'm getting off the plane, I'm getting off of the plane, again, everyone's going to understand exactly what you're saying. It's just that there's a slight difference there for native speakers, a tiny, 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 tiny difference with regards to what you're pointing out. At least that's my feeling. It's if you say I'm getting off something, it's more I'm thinking about you leaving it. Whereas if you say I'm getting off of that thing, it puts more emphasis on the thing that you're getting off. It's hard to describe, but that's my sort of the mind in my. That's how my mind's working while I'm thinking about this. An important point here when we're talking about transport, we get in a car, we get out of a car, we get in a taxi, we get out of a taxi, or into and out of cars and taxis. You can say the same thing with regards to public transport, things like planes, trains, buses, trams, boats, ferries. Although I think more commonly you will hear on and off. I don't know why that's the case. English sucks sometimes, guys, but that's the case. You can use in and out of with regards to public transport though. If I was to say I'm getting in the plane now, I'm getting into the plane now, I'm still imagining entering the plane. If I'm getting out of the plane now, if I'm getting out of the plane, you're exiting the plane. It's just that when it's public transport and you're thinking more about the thing is taking you for a journey, there's a lot of other people on that thing. If it's a plane, train, bus, whatever it is, you can use on and off. You'll hear that much more commonly. Another thing that I wanted to point out with these phrasal verbs, guys, they're separable. They're separable. What does this mean? If I put on my jumper, the phrasal verb's connected. Put on. I put on my jumper. But they can be separated. So you could also say, I put my jumper on. And that's where the phrasal verb is going to be either side of, I think it's the object there. So I'm no grammar Nazi, but the jumper, you can separate the phrasal verb around it. It kind of hugs the thing that you're talking about. I put my jumper on. Or I could say I put on my jumper. Absolutely, in this case, doesn't matter which one you use. They both sound natural. I would use both. I don't know what's going on in my brain when I think about these things and I choose one of them to use. It just happens, but I think separating phrasal verbs will definitely make you sound a lot more native level, because that's something that foreign learners of English don't necessarily do very often. They always tend to keep them together. So if you want to sound a little bit more advanced, although it doesn't always work with all phrasal verbs, try separating them. I'll have to do some more classes in the future about how and when to do that with specific kinds of phrasal verbs, but at least in the case of, say, putting clothes on or taking clothes off, and you will have just heard then that I separated both of them. You can put on clothes or you can take off clothes. So it has to have that object as well. You have to be talking about using the phrasal verb on a thing. So if I get on a plane, there's no object. I could say that I'm getting myself on the plane, and then I can split it because I'm now talking about the verb acting on me. Whereas if I just use it as I'm getting on the plane, it can't be split. You can't say I'm getting the plane on. That doesn't make sense. So these ones are separable. What are some other examples we could use? I'm putting a watch on my wrist. I'm putting on the watch onto my wrist. I think in that case, that's a bit weird. If you're talking about putting it on something, you would have to place the something always after on. So let's think about that for a sec. I'm putting the watch on my wrist. I'm putting on the watch. Yeah, okay. Because I said on my wrist, I have to leave it together because I have to put wrist after on. So I'm putting the watch on my wrist. Okay, so it's split. But if I'm saying I'm just putting the watch on, it can be that way, or it can be I'm putting on the watch. But then I can't say wrist after I've said I'm putting on the watch, because on needs to go in front of wrist. Anyway, that's getting a bit complicated. Let's just open it up for questions, guys. Are there any questions that you have with regards to phrasal verbs using on and off and what we just talked about? Sorry, it's a bit scattered. I've just sort of decided to wing it today and try and do a bit of a live lesson, keep this momentum going and try and help you guys with these phrasal verbs. So put some comments down there. Have you got any kind of questions? It could be about any phrasal verbs. Let's just have a chat. So if you want to ask me about something, go for it. Now's your chance. So we're talking about phrasal verbs, guys. Mainly focusing on and off, but it's question time. It's question time. Hit me up. What do you want to know? What can I help you with? What phrasal verbs have been driving you guys crazy recently? Because I know they're pretty evil at times. So let's have a chat. Send me a comment. Let me know what you think. Come on. You got this, guys. You got this. I'm in the museum at the moment and they're all cleaning up, so I snuck into this area where they can't. No public people are going to come and sit down and distract us. Did you miss the whole lesson? We were talking about on and off. Su and on. It depends. It obviously depends on the situation. There are many different ways to use on and off with phrasal verbs. There are many phrasal verbs where they're not opposites. So where you can't use both, or off and on. What do you think when you say things like, we will pull this off or carry it off? What do you mean? What do I think of it? You can definitely use it. As an idiom, on and off. You can use it as on and off as an idiom. That would mean that it starts and stops. So you could use on and off in the context of, say, a relationship. We've been on and off recently, and that would mean that you've been together, then you broke up. Then you were together again, then you may have broken up again. So it's that idea of it switching back and forth. We were on, then we were off. We were on, then we were off. You could say the same thing about power. Imagine that you have electricity coming to your house, but for some reason the electricity keeps flicking on and off because of the power plant. It could be anything. It's going on and off, back and forth like that. If if you were saying, you know, to your parents, oh, the electricity's been on and off all night, it means that it's been on for a bit, the lights were working, and then all of a sudden they were off again. And then they came back on again. And then they might go off again. So it's that idea of back and forth. It's been on and off, on and off. So again, it's that just thinking of that idea of going back and forth, changing, and you can probably use it in any way that you really want to. It just depends on the context. I think from the top of my head, you would have to give me some more examples of where you've heard it. But yeah, I would say that quite a bit, I think, especially talking about relationships. People use that all the time. We're on and off. And then also electricity, power, water you could talk about with your turning a tap on, turning a tap off. If the water was flowing, then it stopped, then it was flowing again. You could say, oh, the water's been on and off all night. It's really weird. It's on and off. So who else? Any other questions, guys? I'm here to help you with your phrasal verbs or anything else in English. It's question time. Send me some questions. Chuck a comment on. Let's do it. I don't understand well if we can use equally off and out of in transport, or it depends on the verb which is before the preposition or the kind of transport. What are some examples, Estefania? What are some examples? Because I would imagine, yeah, you can use either with a lot of these verbs, but I think if you're going to use out, you'd have to pair it with in. So you're getting in, you're getting out. If you're talking about getting on, you'd have to use off. Or if you're talking about off, you have to use on. If you're talking about those things, you would never compare the two and say I'm getting out of something and I'm getting on something. At least most people probably wouldn't do that. You'd think of them in those opposite ways, either on and off, in and out. But again, in my mind, if you talk about getting in something or getting out of something, I'm imagining that you're inside of that thing. So if you're in a train, I'm imagining that you're literally inside the carriage, sitting there on the seat, inside the train. If you're on a train, I'm imagining you're sitting on the seat. So you're riding it, as if you're talking more about the journey happening. You're on the train, the journey's taking place, and at the end of the journey you're going to get off, whereas if you say I'm getting into the train or I'm getting in the train, it's almost that idea of you climbing inside, you know, getting in and then sitting inside of it. So two different ways of describing pretty much the same thing. It just depends on how you want to describe the situation. So that just comes with time. You just have to practice it. What about everyone else who's watching? Any other questions with phrasal verbs? On and off, up and down, anything you want. Let's chat. Oh, hey Emma. No worries, Steph. Any other questions, guys? This is where you get to use me. I'm your teacher. I'm here. You can just ask away, ask away. What are some other ways we could describe taking something off? So imagine, as we were talking about before, I'm taking my jumper off. What are some other verbs that we could use whilst also keeping the word off sitting there after the jumper? What are some other ways of describing that movement or that action with regards to the jumper? Can you think of any other verbs? So you take it off. What's another way of describing that off movement? You know, if I'm to maybe rip it off, you know, I literally tore it off my body. You could use rip to describe the action. You could use tear to describe the action. You could use other verbs as well, like you could pull it off your body if you did that kind of action. What are some other verbs? Can you think of other ways of describing that? Anyone? Anyone? Come on, what about you, Emma? Any verbs? Any verbs you can think of to describe that action of taking off a jumper? What are some other ways that I could do that? I could do it in a vigorous manner, in a really rapid manner. using those verbs like rip and tear. But what else could I do? How else could I remove my shirt? This is that awkward moment where I think I need like a coffee here and I can just sip while you guys sit there and think. Because I'm just sort of like, la la la. Come on guys, it's question time. This is all you. I'm going to put some questions in the comment box here down below. Send me some questions. Something for me to answer. Anything phrasal verb wise, up to you. What are you having trouble with at the moment? I'm an open book. I'm here to answer your questions. Hey, what's up, Noi? Almost need some music for the elevator. Alright, in the case of to drop off, does the preposition describe something similar like decrease, or do we have to consider all the phrasal verb here? I think it's the idea of dropping it off. So the thing is leaving you, it's exiting you, it's going away from you. So if you drop something off, it would mean that it leaves you. However, there's not, I guess it's in that case, the opposite of off would be up. Because the opposite of to drop off is to pick up. So you could take your kids to school, and if your kids get out of the car, if they get off the bus, depending on if we're talking about your car or we're talking about public transport, to get off or to get out, then what was the phrasal verb we were using? We were dropping them off. So we were leaving them at the school. We were dropping them off. But in this case, after school, when you go to get your kids, you're going to be picking them up. So you're going to be picking them up. It doesn't literally mean lifting them, but it would mean collecting them. You're picking them up, they're going to get in the car, or they're going to get on the bus. Again there, on for public transport, in because it's your car, it's not public transport, and then you're going to take them home. So to drop something off, to pick something up, again in that case it's kind of like off is going away and up is coming towards you. It's that idea of that movement difference there, and you're using different verbs to describe it. So obviously if I do this, if I'm holding something, whether it's my headphones or something, and I do this, that action is to drop. And if I do this, that action is to pick up, or you can't really say pick. Pick is this motion, but you can't say pick to do this because you have to say pick up. You're picking it up in that direction to pick up. So that's up and off in that example. How are you going, Maria? I felt a little confused when some people used to give up. So that one is an example, at least off the top of my head, where to give up wouldn't be literal. So up in that case, I guess it could be like to clean up, to fix up, in that it's an action that's been completed, so it's finished. But when it's used with give like that, to give up, it would mean to surrender. So if I was robbing a bank and someone came, the police came, I'm robbing a bank, I've got a gun, I'm looking for money, the police come and I'm surrounded, I might say, I give up. So I guess you could think about it putting your hands up. I'm giving up, I surrender. But I think if there is some kind of literal reason that we use the word up there, it would be that the action has finished. When you give up, it's over. It's complete. There's no more, like cleaning up is to clean to completion. To fix something up is to completely fix something. To give up would be to completely surrender. I give up. What are you up to? Or what about up to? Up to, that's a hard one. To be up to something. That's one of those phrasal verbs that uses two prepositions, or at least, it's got up there and then it has to as well. To be up to something simply means to do. So this is a kind of cool one in English, especially Australian English, and I was talking to Steph about this earlier. You can say, what are you up to? Which is, what are you up to? And that just means, what are you doing? And I use that a lot. I think Australians use that a lot. If I see someone who I'm friends with and I, want to know what they've been doing, more often than not, I'll probably say, what are you up to? Or what have you been up to? So what are you up to is present tense. Right now, what are you doing? What have you been up to is what have you been doing? What were you up to today? What have you been doing today? So that's the past. But to be up to is just doing. What are you up to? What chapter? And often just chapter. Chapter, mate. What chapter? What are you up to? So I definitely recommend using that if you want to sound a little more like an Aussie, like a native speaker, because again, it is a bit more complicated. What are you up to instead of what are you doing? But it's the kind of things that natives probably use more often than just what are you doing, although we use both in this case. So definitely give that a go, Nunoi. Doreen, what have you said? You're confused between fall off and fall down. That's a complicated one as well. So if you fall down, that is that you're just walking and you fall. So you're not on something. You have to be on something to fall off something, right? So you can't just be walking and fall off. You have to be on a table, for example. If I'm standing on a table and I fell off the table, that's an example of where you're on something and you're falling off something. So again, I'll use my little card. I've got my museum card here. If it's on my hand, it just fell off my hand. If it fell, that just means it's the action of doing this. I don't know if it was on something beforehand. I have no idea what happened. It just fell. Whereas if I knew that this was sitting on something above me, the roof, I don't know, the ceiling, it was on the ceiling, then I could describe the action of falling off the ceiling, off the roof. It fell off the table. So that's the difference between fall down, which is just to fall, whereas if you fall off something, you were on it in the first place, you had to be on that thing, and then you've come off that thing. No worries, Nunoi. Can you pronounce fell, felt, and failure? I can. So fell, felt, you've got to make sure you say that t, felt, and failure, failure, or failure, failure. You're all good, mate. If you've got any questions, come in, drop them away. We're just talking about phrasal verbs. We were specifically talking about on and off as opposites. So to put something on versus to take something off, to step on something as opposed to step off something, to turn something on as opposed to turning that thing off. But it's question time, so if you have any kinds of difficulties in English or phrasal verbs specifically, feel free to ask and I will answer away. I'm here to help you guys, so just ask me the questions that you need answers to. And I hope that helped, Emma. Hope that helped. So give me some questions, guys. What's been troubling you recently? What have you had difficulties with regards to phrasal verbs? Could be expressions, could be any other aspects of English, contractions, pronunciation. What's been difficult recently? And I might finish up in 5 or 10 minutes. So give me some questions, comment below. Do these ones. Need that elevator music. Don't leave me hanging, guys. Don't leave me hanging. Give me some questions. What can I do for you? No questions? Alright, what about you? Early April, you were talking about fell and felt. What? Can we use hating? In what context? In what context, Early? Give me some context with regards to how you want to use hating. Do you want me to just say it, or do you want me to use it in a sentence? Like, I'm hating someone, or I'm hating something. I know, Estefania, the phrasal verbs with over are pretty irritating. I think a lot of those too are not literal, and that's part of the problem, but a lot of them are as well. Like, to get over something is to kind of like transcend that thing. If there's a problem here and you get over that thing, you're getting past it. You're going from one side to the other, so you're getting over that thing. What are some other examples, Steph? Have you got any others with over that I can describe or talk about with you for the next 5 or so minutes? I've got to see too. I wonder if I can actually go through comments here. Oh, I can. I don't know. I would say, Nunoy, I would say that up to is up to a phrasal verb. I would say it is. I don't know the exact, it's a phrasal verb in that I feel like it's multiple words to describe that. To be up to and then something. It's like to do something. It's a phrasal verb because there's multiple words. What else have we got here? Other questions. What about running? Okay, Emma, I've got yours here. What about run something off? There are different meanings, but how do you know when someone uses this phrasal verb? It's all context. So I would need, again, examples of what you mean, because, as you say, to run off could mean quite a few things. So, for instance, if I was an American back in the days where there were Indians and some Indians attacked my farm, if I went outside with my gun or with some other people to scare them off, you could say that you were running them off your farm. So you're running them off because they're running off your farm and you're causing that to happen. So that's why you can use the phrasal verb to run someone off. And again, you can separate it there. You can run someone off, or you can run off someone because they're running away, and you can use the word off to describe that there's distance, that movement. They're going away from you. They're going off. But you can also use run off. What else would be another way? See, that's a difficult one. I think that's the main definition that comes to mind. You could say that something was running off something else if you're talking about power, electricity. So my computer at the moment is running off the electricity in the wall here. So I have my computer plugged in to the wall. I have the power switched on. I have it turned on. I flicked the switch on before, and the power is on for my computer, so my computer is running off of the power. And in this sense, to run off, it's kind of like more from. So if you run off something, it's that thing is giving you the thing to run. To run in this case means to work, to function. And so imagine I was in a classroom and I was learning from someone. I could say I was learning off that person. If, say, they were giving me something, I could say that I was getting that thing off that person. So in that case, off means from. And I think, again, it's talking about that movement. This thing is coming from somewhere, whether it's electricity coming from the wall into my computer and my computer is running off the electricity, or it's me getting something from someone and I'm learning something off that person. So, for instance, at the moment, you guys are learning English off me. You're learning it from me. Any other questions, guys? Let's scroll down here a bit. Why off, like in kick off, means the beginning or the start? I would imagine that this is sort of like an expression where it would have come from a sport, Dan. So Daniel's asked why we use off in things like to kick off, to start off. I think for kick off, that's like literally the ball would be kicked off the ground. It would be kicked off whatever the thing is that it's sitting on to start the game. And that's why we'd use the expression, let's kick it off. So for example, today's lesson, I kicked it off with an explanation of using on and off with verbs like put and take, or turning power on and off, those sorts of things. To kick off means begin because it's starting the thing off. I guess a way of thinking about it is the ball getting kicked off the ground to start the game, to kick off. Let's go. What's going on, Tabo? Have you got any questions? We're talking about phrasal verbs. So feel free to ask me some questions if you've got anything you want to work on. Dorina asks, almost there or nearly there? You can use both. What's the difference? Or are they the same meaning? Same meaning. Almost and nearly are synonyms. I would use them like that. Yeah, you are learning English off me. Exactly. Nailed it. You're welcome, Dan. That's all good. I hope it made sense. And again, guys, like, phrasal verbs are where it's at. You guys need to learn this stuff. It's important to read a lot because you'll just absorb it over time, but it's also important to do these kinds of lessons where I try and put them in context. So like turning something off versus turning something on, you know. If you understand what it is you're trying to describe, you'll get used to using those prepositions on and off and just switching the verb out. The verb is just explaining what's happening. So like with turning power on, turning power off, I can switch the verb. I can say switch it on, switch it off. Flick it on, flick it off. Flip it on, flip it off. The verb can change. It's the on and off that needs to stay the same because it's describing that action. Going on, going off. The same with putting something on, taking something off. In that case, you've got to change the verb because you can't really put clothes off, because when you put something on yourself, it kind of infers that it's coming on to you, so you have to change the verb. But you could say, I'm taking something off, I'm ripping something off, I'm tearing something off, I'm pulling something off. If you were throwing your shoes off using, vigorous motions with your legs, you could say you were throwing them off, kicking them off, pulling them on, putting them on, dragging them on. The verb can change. The thing that you want to learn in these cases is that on and off are those opposites. On, off, they're opposites. So get used to switching those verbs around and changing the verbs. The verb is just allowing you to describe how that action is happening. And we can go through some other examples again. Let's just do it while you guys are thinking of more questions to ask me. Imagine that you are getting on to some public transport. What are some different verbs that you could use to describe literally getting on to that public transport? So you're getting on a train. Could you step on the train? You could step on the train. Could you walk on the train? You could walk on the train. Could you run on the train? You could run onto the train. You could run on the train. You can say onto or on, same thing. You could jump on the train. You could leap on the train. In all of these cases, you were not on the train was here, and then you were on the train, and the verb is just describing how you went from here to here. Whether you walked, whether you ran, whether you jumped, whether you leapt, whether you just got there, it's totally up to you how you describe it. Exactly, Nunoy. You could hop on the train. You could hop off the train. So what about some other examples? If you were exiting the train, what are some phrasal verbs that you guys could use to explain exiting a train, leaving the train? So those are non-phrasal verbs. No, we couldn't use that one, unfortunately, Steph. Catch, you would just say catching it. Because catch here isn't describing you moving. It's not describing you getting on the train. Catch would be that idea of getting it. You've got the train. So you could use got the train, but if you're talking about moving on the train or moving off the train, the verb you use has to describe how you're moving, how you're going from one place to another. And unfortunately, we can't use catch. You definitely can use get, Laura. Good one. To get off the train. No, you can't say catch on. It makes sense in other cases. You can say catch on to something, meaning you've understood what's going on, but you can't use it in the case of transport. So usage of passing by, passing over, passing through. Doreen, that's explaining the same thing. Again, there the verb is consistent, obviously. Passing, meaning, you've got one thing here and you're passing it. If, for instance, you're passing by the thing, it means that you're going past it like this. You're passing the thing, so the two things are going like this. You're passing one thing. If you pass over the thing, it means you're doing this. So imagine you had a road with a bridge over the top. If you want to talk about passing that road, but you're doing this action, you're passing over it. You're going over the top of it. So passing is just the verb that's describing you getting from here to getting to here, and over is describing this. Whereas if you wanted to say I'm passing across the road, it would be at this level. So you would be going like, walking across it. If you want to pass by it, that would be more that you didn't cross over it, but you went near it, and then, you go another direction. So that's that. By is that idea like this. Over is like this. Across would be at the same level as opposed to getting, distance above it. And then through, this is more like, through the thing. So like a tunnel. You've had to go through. You've had to go through the thing. So you pass through a tunnel in that the tunnel, say you've got a mountain and there's a tunnel through the middle of the mountain. If you're passing the mountain, you have to pass through the tunnel to get from one side to the other side. So you can't really pass by the tunnel because you're going in the tunnel. So you have to say I'm passing through it. I'm going from one side to the other side. You could pass by the tunnel though if you were on the outside of the tunnel and you just walked past it. If you went over the mountain, you could say you're passing over the tunnel. So those different prepositions just describe what's going on, whereas passing is just the action of you getting near the thing, going through the thing, depending on how you want to explain it. It's that idea of going from one place to another place. No worries, Yulima. You got me, Steph. Good. Any other questions, guys? I'm going to finish up in a few minutes, so it's your chance to ask anything you guys want. We can have a chat. Anything about phrasal verbs, anything about the lesson that we just sat through, anything about English in general. I'll give you guys another 5 minutes, so hit me up. Totally up to you guys. How can I use instead on? It's just instead of, Maria. There's no instead on, just instead of something. I would use this to say I'm using one thing as opposed to this other thing. So I could have used this other thing. I might have used this other thing, but instead of using this thing, instead I use this thing. So it's like you've got two options, and if you use one and not the other one, you're using this one instead of this one, or you're using this one instead of this one. So it's like you've only got one choice, but you could have used either one. And so that's what that's describing. It's like, well, I had both, but instead of using that one, I chose this one. I hope that makes sense. No, you're welcome. Too easy. So what have we got here, Tabo? My car drives me off my house on my work. I don't understand what you mean, mate. If it drives you off your house, that would be the idea that the car is literally on top of your house. You're in your car and you drove off your house. And if you drove onto work, that would be the idea that you drove to the point of the car coming down on top of work. So you drove onto your work, literally, like you got out of your car and you were like, oh, we've landed on top of work. All right, there was another question here from David. What is a more natural way to ask someone how much time it will take before something happens? Like, how many minutes before 5 p.m. or before, is this a longer one? Or just ... I would say, yeah, how many minutes until, I wouldn't say minutes, I'd say how much time until, when, you might just say when is that thing, how long until, that's probably a better way of doing it. How long until we have to leave, how long until it starts, how long until it arrives, how long is probably a good way of doing it. If you specifically want to know the time though, because how long might be that someone just says, any kind of answer regarding time, they might say just a few minutes. If you want to know specific time though, you'll have to say how many minutes, how much time, and again there, many minutes, because minutes are countable. You can have 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes, so you have to use many minutes. How many minutes? With time though, time is an uncountable noun. You can't say 1 time, 2 times, 3 times. In this case, no. Time is uncountable, so you have to use much. How much time? How many minutes? How many hours? How many seconds? Countable nouns. So I hope that helps, mate. How long? Nunoi, flying off. Flying off again, that would mean if you were in a plane and the plane was taking off, it's leaving. So that distance is being created. So it's leaving, it's flying off. It's flying away from. It's if you were sitting there at least. So it's got to be in context with something quite often. So if you're saying the plane takes off, it's taking off from the runway. So it's taking off from the airport. It's leaving the ground. It's taking off from the ground. It's taking off. If you're flying off, it's the same thing. It's the distance is being created. You can also use this. Imagine that you saw a bird, literally, going away from you. It doesn't necessarily have to have started on the ground or started in a tree. The main idea is that it's leaving. It's going away from you. You can say that it's flying off. Distance is getting created between you and that thing, so you can use off. And the verb flying is talking about how that movement is occurring. What's the action that's leading to that distance? So you could say, I'm walking off. So I'm walking off. I'm running off. I'm running off. The direction is being, elongated. Running off. Jumping off. If it was actually jumping off into the distance, imagine you see a kangaroo. He's hopping off. He's hopping away from me. He's jumping off. He's jumping away from me. So I hope that helps. Living on versus living off. So this is a different example, Maria, because these aren't necessarily opposites. These kind of mean the same thing, but they'd be used in different cases. So let me think about this. To live on something. Land. You live on land. So that means that you have a house and it's constructed on land. So you're living on land. You could live on sand if that's the kind of land. It could be a grassy field. It could be a rock. You're living on that thing. If you live off something though, that means that you use that thing to survive. So if you live off the land as opposed to live on the land, to live off the land would mean that you're growing crops. Maybe you've got some vegetables, you've got some animals that are in the fields, you've got a farm. You've got a farm. If you're living off the land, that means that you are using the land to survive. So you've got animals, you've got plants, you've got crops, you're harvesting it all, you're eating it, or you're selling it to get money, and it's sustaining you. It's allowing you to live. So that way you can use I'm living off the land. If you lost your job, if you for some reason lost your job, you could say that you are living off your savings. Your savings is the money that you have saved in the bank. So you've saved up all of this money. Fortunately for you, you didn't know you were going to lose your job, but you did. And you've saved up all this money. You had it at the bank. If you live off that money, that means you're using that money to sustain yourself. Whereas if you say I'm living on that money, it's sort of the same idea there in that case. It would be that you're using that money to live. You're using it to live. So they're subtle, they're really, really subtle, but it's that same kind of idea, I guess, in that if you're using it to physically live somewhere, like on land, you would say I'm living on the land. That would be like the place that you're on. If you're living off the land, it would be that you've got all these things that you're using to survive. Whereas, if you've got savings in the bank, you could say I'm living off them or I'm living on them. Either one would be fine. Okay, Danilo, I never understood how to use though, blah, 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 though. It is always at the end of a sentence. That's a difficult question. So, how would I use though? It would kind of be like I was trying to say something that was sort of an added fact or something else to consider. So, okay, imagine that I know someone who is a parent. He's got 2 kids. I could say then, if that's the main story, but I wanted to add in a few other facts, I could say, oh man, he's a great dad, but he's really busy though. He's always busy though. So it's kind of like, I guess it's when you can, it's sort of like when you put although at the start of a sentence, you can put though at the back. I'll have to look this up because I'm just thinking of this off the top of my head. I don't know the rules. I just do it naturally, but it would be kind of like I'm just adding extra information, extra facts. So Again, I could be like, this guy's a really good dad, but he's a nasty guy though. So it's just, oh yeah, but this extra fact. So I think that's a way of thinking about it. I'll have to look that up. I don't actually know the specific answer to that, unfortunately. And Estefania said it as well, just in the comments there. It's like although. So you could say he's a great dad, although he's a bit of an asshole. You know, he's not a good guy. Although he's not a good guy, he's not a good guy though. So if you put it at the end, you got to use though. What else we got? No, you're welcome, guys. All right, we might leave it there. I'm going to try and do more of these in the future. I will try and give you more notice so that you have a little more warning and you can, you know, prepare questions. You can come along and we can study together. And I'm also planning to hopefully create transcripts for these episodes so that you can sit there and read through it. You know, a lot of this is my sort of scattered thoughts. I'm just speaking off the top of my head and giving you access to real English, how it's spoken by a native person. But I'm going to create transcripts and hopefully lesson plans for this sort of stuff and have it on the Aussie English website. So it's going to be part of the membership. If you guys want to take your learning to the next level, make sure you jump over to the Aussie English website and become an Aussie English member. You can try it at the moment for $1 for 1 week. Get over there, and if you've got any questions, put them in the comments. You're also always welcome to send me a message on Facebook. And I've also started doing tutoring again. So if you want private lessons, if you want corrections of any kind for things like essays, CVs, work documents, obviously I need to sustain myself. I need to live off money that I earn. So if you have any kinds of stuff you want to do, whether it's private lessons on Skype or you just want some work corrected, send me a message, put a comment down there for me to send you a message, get in contact with me, and let's take your English to the next level. Anyway, guys, I really appreciate you coming and watching this lesson. I hope it's helped. Sorry, my mind's a little scattered at times. I'm trying to sort of just wing it, but I'll chat to you soon. See you guys.